Life is too short to spend it regretting things you haven't done. If you regret things that you haven't done, what you're telling yourself is that life isn't good unless you check a certain box and achieve a certain objective. And that's not a good way to live, because there will always be something that you haven't done, something that you haven't accomplished. If you have to meet certain terms in order to be able to say that you've had a good life, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have objectives. It doesn't mean that you shouldn't have things you're trying to do. But you shouldn't think about life through that lens of wishing you would have done more, wishing you would have accomplished something that you didn't accomplish. Regret doesn't ever make our lives better. And yet, at the same time, I find that part of finding peace is learning to stop putting off things that you wanted to do. The things that you said, I really would like to finish up, I would really like to accomplish. You don't have to finish them to have a good life, but you'll have a better life if you spend time doing those things. Because a good life is a life spent doing things we value, things that give us a sense of purpose, things that uplift our spirit, things that inspire us and make us feel like we're accomplished. And it's so easy to put off those things. They're not necessarily big, tremendous things. We all have our own personal list of things we just think it would be really cool if we could do. And that list of things often winds up taking the back seat to a lot of distractions that don't really add to our lives. For example, I find it's so very easy to come home after work and look at some sort of social media and maybe some YouTube videos or something that I just happen to see. And then an hour or two of my day's gone, and I spent it just doing nothing really. And then I have some game that I wanted to finish, or a writing project I wanted to work on. And those things that were on my to-do list, they didn't really get touched because I was spending this time just kind of zoned out, distracted by something. So learning to stop being distracted, I think, is an important part of personal growth. Just as it is important to stop rushing to complete things. And it's kind of funny because those two things might seem in a way like they're opposites. On one hand, I'm saying put less effort into completing things. And on the other hand, I'm saying spend less time being distracted by things that keep you from completing your objectives and your goals. And maybe that's just another way of saying, don't seek happiness, but rather look for ways to eliminate the things in your life that deprive you of joy. And if you eliminate the things which do you harm, you don't really have to make an effort to make your life better. It just will be. It's sort of like opening up the curtain. You don't have to chase the darkness away. All you have to do is let in the light. And on that thought, it's important to remember that the greatest achievement, both in the moment and for the entire duration of your life, is to have in all things a positive attitude. Now, I'm thinking about the people who I have admired the most in public display. Those larger-than-life figures that I have always admired. And we all have those celebrity figures that we admire. And I think about what it is that makes me admire them. And it's not generally so much what they've done as it is how they made me feel. An example of this would be Elvis Presley. I think Elvis Presley is an amazing performer, an amazing musician. He's left a legacy which is beloved by countless people of all walks of life and age. And yet, there were many other musicians and performers that created works that were just as great, technically, as Elvis. So what was it then that made Elvis special in a way that very few others really were? And the truth of this is Elvis made people feel special. When he performed, people didn't feel like the performance was about him. They felt like it was personal. And that's why he was loved in such a special way, because he made other people feel special about themselves. And the truth is, if you really want to make a difference in the world or in other people's lives or in your life, you have to go about it from a place of loving what you do. Because just being good at something isn't enough. Another good example would be Queen Elizabeth, who has perished this year after a long and successful life being Queen of England. I think regardless of your political position, almost everybody has good things to say about Queen Elizabeth. I also am reminded of Vera Lynn. Vera Lynn was a young girl who sang amazing songs during the Second World War, also for her country in England. And she died, I believe, in 2020 at the age of 103, after a long and successful life, inspiring other people. And again, she's a character who I'm sure was not perfect, and yet she was almost universally beloved because she focused on sending out a positive energy into the world. She wasn't known for vices or evils or hatred or agendas. She just sang beautiful songs and reminded people that there is beauty in the world, even in the darkest of times. Whether it's Queen Elizabeth or Elvis Presley or someone else, the truth is the things that really matter in life aren't the things we accomplish. They're not the things that we are able to put down on a resume and say, look at what I finished. It's not about finishing a game. It's not about getting a certain promotion at work. It's not about reaching a certain financial threshold. It isn't about being able to say that you've acquired any specific mastery. It's about being able to say that you lived a life which you loved, both in terms of loving the things that you do and loving those around you as you make your way along the pathway of your life. Now, it's important to realize that journeys don't matter if you don't share them. What I'm saying by this is that if all the things you do only for yourself, and you don't share that light in any way, then it dies with you. So part of the joy of life is finding a way to share that positive energy with others. It's not to say that you do it just for other people. It's that you learn how to let the light into your life. And then you open yourself to the opportunity to reflect that light into other people's lives. Not to bully your way in and force it on anyone, but just to be available in a way that makes other people have the opportunity to share the good things that you discover. Now, again, there's a bit of a paradox there, because all good things come from personal experiences. And if you're doing something for an audience, then it's probably not a personal experience. So you need to learn that peace in life and satisfaction in life often comes from a solitary experience, from being happy with who you are alone, with engaging in your adventure solo. But then you also want to look for ways to take that personal experience and make it a bit public, so that you're not hiding your light under a bushel. You want to be like a lighthouse that has its own light, which is beauty, whether it's alone or in company, but also to be visible, so that when others are lost, they too might use your light to help guide their way. Now, it's important not to try too hard, because any lesson, when you start trying too hard, just seems inauthentic and disingenuous, and no one's ever been happy because they determined with all their might to engage in the relentless pursuit of joy. And yet, life is too short for us to not make an effort in the things that we do. There's no reason for us to do something and not want to do it well. Whether it's playing a game or spending time with your friends, going to work, whatever it is you're doing, you should do it with all your heart and all your soul, and be as present in the moment as possible to do the very best job you possibly can. Because if you aren't going to do it well, then why do it at all? But that doesn't mean that you need to be frustrated if things don't go your way. It doesn't mean that you have to be in bondage to the outcome. It doesn't mean that you have to think, if things don't go the way I want them to go, then I'm a failure. It doesn't mean that you have to map out the entire future of your life and say, this is all the things I want to get done and all the things I want to accomplish and all the things I need to be. You can let all that go, and you can still strive to be the very best that you're capable of being in this moment. So you see, when we let go of things, we have a way of putting ourselves into a position where we're much better at finding the things and building the things and creating the things that we actually were looking for all along. It's sort of like when you stop trying to fall asleep and you just relax, and then suddenly you wake up the next morning. When we stop feeding things that are bad, then good naturally comes. When we allow ourselves to enjoy our lives, we're naturally in a position where we're more able to make better the lives of others, even if we're not going out of our way to do so. But in a nutshell, I'll close with just this one thought, because it's the most important of all the thoughts I've spoken of here. Life is too short for us to ever have any bad days. You see, no matter what your takeaway is, your life is never going to be better because you had a bad attitude. You're never going to have a better day because you had a bad day. Frustration never leads to happiness and joy. And as much as we're tempted to start to go down the path of frustration and depression, disappointment, and all of those sorts of things, it's important for us to remember, when we're tempted to be frustrated, when we're tempted to be disappointed, when we're tempted to be judgmental of others and critical of ourselves, through all of that, it's important for us to remember that life is filled with hope and glory, and our lives do not need to have any more bad days in them. So wherever your journey takes you, I hope that you have a wonderful day. Thank you for watching.